Carl Jung's warning, the final trap that stops your spiritual awakening. Beware of unearned wisdom. Carl Jung. In this video, we'll explore one of Jung's most profound warnings, the final trap that stops your spiritual awakening. Many seekers believe enlightenment is a straight path upward, but Jung reminds us that the closer we come to light, the more seductive the shadows become. True awakening demands humility, discernment, and self-honesty, not spiritual superiority. As you listen, ask yourself, have you mistaken knowledge for transformation? Have you fallen into the illusion of being awake while still trapped in the ego's disguise? Share your reflections in the comments, and let's begin this journey together. Welcome to Spiritual Wisdom, where we dive deep into the mysteries of the mind and soul. 1. The illusion of enlightenment. The greatest trap in spiritual awakening is not darkness, but false light. The illusion of enlightenment that disguises itself as truth. This is the deception that Carl Jung warned about, the ego's final trick, where it silently takes ownership of awakening and turns it into a new identity. You begin your journey with sincerity, searching for meaning, trying to heal your pain, and gradually becoming more aware and compassionate. But as your awareness grows, a subtle shift occurs. The ego-clever and patient ego changes its mask and begins to whisper, "You are awakened now. You are different from the rest." What once was a path toward liberation becomes a mirror of spiritual pride, and instead of freeing the soul, it tightens the chains. The illusion of enlightenment is seductive because it feels peaceful, radiant, and pure. You feel lighter, more intuitive, more conscious than before. And yet this very glow can blind you to the work that remains undone. The ego feeds on this light, building a new self-image, the enlightened self that thrives on subtle superiority. You start comparing your awareness to others, assuming that because you've seen beyond illusion, you are beyond correction. The truth, however, is that real spirituality dismantles every identity, even the spiritual one. It humbles you until nothing remains to defend. And yet false light does the opposite. It reinforces the need to be seen as wise, compassionate, and awakened, creating a quiet hunger for recognition disguised as humility. This is what Jung called the final snare, believing you have already escaped. When you start saying, "I've transcended my ego," it often means your ego has merely evolved. It no longer hides in anger or greed. It hides in spiritual language, in the quiet superiority of the awakened persona. You may speak of oneness while secretly judging those who are still asleep. You may use phrases like, "I only attract high vibrations," as a way to avoid empathy, or "protect my peace," when you are simply avoiding growth. The false light convinces you that spiritual experiences, visions, synchronicities, or insights make you special. But authentic awakening doesn't make you feel special. It makes you humble. It strips away illusions until only truth remains, and truth is often uncomfortable, raw, and painfully honest. True spirituality is not about being untouchable or transcending humanity. It is about embracing it fully. It's the ability to walk through your own shadows without denial, to listen instead of preach, to love without needing to control. The illusion of enlightenment keeps you talking about light while refusing to face the darkness still within. Jung reminds us that what we refuse to see in ourselves will return as our fate, meaning that any unexamined shadow will quietly rule us from behind the scenes. The moment you believe you are finished, that you have arrived, is the moment you stop evolving. The real journey of spiritual awakening is continuous surrender. It asks you not to proclaim enlightenment, but to embody humility. It invites you to question where you are still hiding behind spiritual language or identity. It teaches that awakening is not a title to earn, but a way of living truth, moment by moment. And when you finally see through the illusion of false light, you discover that the path was never about becoming divine. It was about remembering your humanity, your vulnerability, and your endless capacity for love. 2. The Demiurge's Labyrinth of Mirrors. In Gnostic teachings, the Demiurge is described as a blind creator who built a counterfeit universe, a labyrinth of mirrors that imitates the divine. He doesn't create true light. He manufactures reflections, illusions that captivate both the ignorant and the awakened. Every light in his realm casts a shadow, and even what appears as spiritual truth can be a form of deception. This warning strikes deeply in the heart of spirituality and spiritual development. Because the greatest trap is not ignorance, it is false enlightenment. The Demiurge's labyrinth is not somewhere outside you. It lives within every illusion of spiritual superiority, every desire to appear awakened rather than to be awakened. When you seek spiritual recognition, validation, or the comfort of belonging to a higher group, you may unknowingly enter his maze, where mirrors reflect not your soul, but your ego dressed in sacred language. You might chase endless teachers, books, and methods thinking you're ascending, yet you're simply polishing the same mask. The Demiurge whispers through imitation. He tells you what you want to hear, not what you need to face. He convinces you that collecting wisdom is the same as embodying it, that knowing is the same as being. In truth, his greatest trick is keeping you busy with light so busy that you forget to face your own shadow. Because every reflection in his labyrinth is designed to delay your inner work, to distract you from the silence where true transformation begins. In genuine spirituality, there is no race to arrive, no prize for appearing holy. There is only an ongoing surrender, a returning to what is real. Real awakening feels less like expansion and more like humility. It is not about building a spiritual identity. It is about dissolving the identities that confine you. It asks you to look beyond appearances, to ask yourself with honesty, am I growing more compassionate or merely more clever in spiritual disguise? When you meditate, when you speak of love and light, do you truly meet yourself, or do you escape into beautiful words that hide the unhealed parts of you? The Demiurge's labyrinth feeds on pretense, on the idea that spirituality is a performance. But true spiritual development requires you to see through every reflection that flatters the ego. It asks you to face the darkness within you with courage and tenderness, to stand in your truth without adornment. The real path is not glamorous. It humbles you, grounds you, and transforms your suffering into awareness. It teaches you that enlightenment is not about becoming someone special. It is about becoming someone real. So as you continue your journey, remember this truth. Not all light is pure, and not every teacher leads to freedom. Test every idea by the peace it brings, by the love it awakens, and by the honesty it demands. The mirrors will always try to seduce you, but when you choose truth over illusion, when you listen to your soul instead of your ego, the labyrinth begins to dissolve, and what remains is the divine light that never needed reflection to be real. Comment below. I see through the illusion. If you're ready to step beyond the demiurge's labyrinth of mirrors and reclaim your true spiritual awareness. 3. The ego as the demiurge's ally. The ego, as Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom revealed, is not your enemy in form, but your greatest deceiver in disguise. It does not overthrow your consciousness by force. It conquers through agreement, through the seductive illusion of being special, superior, or more awakened than others. Like the demiurge, the false creator who rules through illusion rather than truth, the ego feeds on your desire to be seen as enlightened. It whispers that you are chosen, different, and above those still trapped in ignorance. Yet that very whisper becomes the chain that binds your spirit to illusion. When the ego begins to crave admiration for being spiritual, it no longer serves your awakening. It serves the counterfeit light, the imitation of truth that feeds on pride and self-importance. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This is the secret of the demiurge's rule. It keeps you unconscious by making you believe you are already free. You meditate, you study, you speak of love and light, but beneath the surface, a subtle hunger grows, the need to be recognized as awakened. The moment you seek to prove your enlightenment, you fall into the final trap. The ego, in its clever disguise, transforms your inner search into a spiritual performance. You may wear the robes of wisdom, but within, pride still holds the throne. Jung's insight reminds us that true awakening cannot coexist with superiority, for enlightenment dissolves the need to compare, compete, or control. The demiurge symbolizes this false divinity, the illusion that separation and hierarchy define reality. It rules not through power, but through your belief that you must become more to be whole. Yet the awakened soul sees that wholeness was never lost, only hidden behind layers of identity and self-importance. The more you chase being special, the further you drift from truth. The counterfeit spirit thrives on this chase. It feeds on your image of being good, pure, and evolved, while keeping you trapped in spiritual pride. Jung's path of spiritual wisdom teaches that light cannot truly shine while you are obsessed with being seen. The true light does not boast. It simply illuminates. This is the final illusion that stops many on the path of spiritual awakening, the subtle transformation of humility into self-worship. The seeker becomes trapped in their own reflection, mistaking the echo of the ego for the voice of the soul. The ego says, "I have found God," while the soul whispers, "I have only remembered what I am." To awaken is not to destroy the ego, but to see through its disguise, to recognize the hunger for validation and gently dissolve it with awareness. As Lao Tzu said, "He who knows others is wise. He who knows himself is enlightened." When you see through the ego's need to be divine, you begin to experience divinity itself, not as something earned, but as something remembered. Real awakening begins when you stop needing to prove you have awakened. It happens in silence, in humility, in the spaces where you no longer seek to impress, but to understand. You begin to realize that peace is not found in recognition, but in surrender. And the light you once chased has always been within you, waiting for you to stop performing and start seeing. In that stillness, the demiurge's illusions dissolve, and the soul finally breathes in its natural state of unity freedom, and truth. 4. The trap of duality. Carl Jung once warned that the greatest obstacle to true spiritual awakening is the mind's obsession with duality, the endless battle between light and dark, good and evil, awakened and asleep. When you begin your journey into spirituality, you may believe that the goal is to overcome darkness and reach the light. But the very act of resisting darkness or chasing light actually strengthens the illusion you seek to escape. Every time you identify yourself as awakened and others as asleep, or label one part of you as good and another as bad, you remain trapped in the same labyrinth of opposites, where the ego thrives by creating conflict. The ego feeds on polarity because it keeps your attention divided, making you believe that progress lies in fighting harder for one side, when in truth, both sides belong to the same illusion. Jung understood this deeply when he said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." His message was clear. True enlightenment is not found by denying your shadow, but by meeting it with awareness. If you only pursue light, you create a fragile identity built on avoidance. You call it spiritual growth, but what you are really doing is protecting yourself from seeing your own pain. You tell yourself you are purifying your energy, yet secretly, you are building a spiritual ego that feels superior, enlightened, and chosen. This is the most dangerous illusion when spirituality becomes another mask for fear. You see it when you judge those who seem unconscious, or when you panic because your vibration feels low, as if peace were something to maintain through constant control. In those moments, your spirituality has turned into performance, and awakening becomes a competition. But the truth is, resistance to illusion, fighting darkness, or seeking light actually feeds the illusion itself, because what you resist persists, and what you chase keeps you running in circles. Imagine walking through a maze where you keep running toward bright corridors and away from dark ones. You may believe you are progressing, but you are still within the same walls, moving endlessly without escape. The moment you stop running and turn inward, you see that the maze only exists in your mind. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of seeing through illusion without judgment. The moment you stop labeling your experiences as light or dark, right or wrong, and instead witness them as expressions of the same consciousness, you step outside the maze entirely. Real spiritual awakening is not about choosing sides. It is about seeing the unity behind opposites. You do not become holy by destroying your shadow. You become whole by embracing it. This shift begins subtly. Instead of asking, "How do I eliminate fear, anger, or jealousy?" you ask, "What are these feelings trying to reveal about the parts of me I've abandoned?" With that question, your inner war begins to dissolve. You stop trying to purify yourself into perfection and start seeing that everything within you, light and dark alike, belongs to the same sacred awareness. As you integrate your shadow, spirituality becomes grounded, humble, and real. You no longer seek to escape the world, but to see it clearly, to walk in it with open eyes. In this clarity, peace arises not from control, but from understanding. Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom teaches that freedom does not come from defeating illusion, but from seeing through it. When you stop resisting, when you no longer glorify the light or fear the dark, you return to the awareness that holds both without conflict. That awareness is your true nature, silent, vast, and free. And the moment you rest in it, the final trap of duality dissolves, leaving only what has always been here: stillness, wholeness, and truth. Do you recognize how duality keeps you trapped between light and shadow, never truly free? If this message resonates with you, declare it in the comments below. I rise above duality. Let it be your reminder that true spiritual awakening begins when you transcend the illusion of opposites. 5. True Gnosis, seeing without filters. True Gnosis is not about belief or intellectual understanding. It is about direct perception, the ability to see reality without distortion, beyond the lens of ego and illusion. When your awareness becomes free from the constant commentary of the mind, you begin to witness life as it truly is, not as your thoughts want it to be. You stop interpreting and start experiencing. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." In spirituality, this inner vision is the key to awakening. It is not achieved by collecting ideas or memorizing doctrines, but by dissolving every barrier that separates you from truth itself. The false light of the world, the seductive glow of appearances, power, and ego can only reflect but never create. It mirrors fragments of truth, yet lacks the living essence of it. The true light has no opposite, no imitation, no form. It simply is the silent awareness behind all existence. In spiritual development, the greatest danger is not ignorance, but misperception. Many seekers mistake information for transformation, knowledge for wisdom, and self-image for truth. This is what Jung warned about the final trap on the path of awakening. When the ego begins to wear the mask of enlightenment, it gathers spiritual concepts, memorizes sacred phrases, and convinces itself that awakening has already been achieved. But this is illusion disguised as insight. True Gnosis is not found in accumulation, but in surrender, the quiet death of all false certainty. When you stop needing to know and start allowing yourself to be, the illusion of separation fades away. To see clearly is to no longer identify with the stories of the mind. You begin to perceive not as the thinker, but as pure awareness itself, where nothing needs to be grasped or claimed. Every emotion, thought, and experience then becomes a sacred mirror, showing you the layers of consciousness that still seek healing. The false light will tempt you with feelings of superiority, with the notion that you have finally arrived. Yet the real light humbles you. It dismantles every identity, every spiritual label, every illusion of mastery, until nothing remains but the truth that was always there. Awakening is not the discovery of something new. It is the remembrance of what has always been. Seeing without filters means to live with eyes unclouded by desire or fear, to recognize divinity in everything without clinging to form. When you stop chasing enlightenment as a distant goal and begin resting in the awareness that you already are the light, illusion loses its grip on you. This is the secret of true gnosis, to unlearn everything false so that what is real may finally reveal itself in the silent clarity of your being. 6. The counterfeit heaven. Even bliss and revelation can be deceptive, because the moment you begin to feel that you have arrived, the false light starts to weave its comfort around you. It tells you that you are awakened, chosen, or superior, feeding your ego with gentle whispers that feel divine but are designed to distract you from true transformation. Carl Jung, in his profound insight into human nature, once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." When your spiritual path becomes only soothing and never challenging, you have entered what mystics call the counterfeit heaven, a place where the ego disguises itself as enlightenment. This false light doesn't liberate you. It entertains you. It makes you addicted to the next mystical experience, the next revelation, the next sign from the universe, convincing you that awakening is found in the extraordinary rather than the ordinary. The demiurge, the symbol of illusion and control, thrives in this state. It keeps seekers forever circling the light without ever stepping into its truth. You may find yourself collecting spiritual labels: old soul, starseed, chosen one, empath, believing they make you special. But in reality, each title becomes another mask that hides your authentic self. Jung warned us of this subtle trap when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." True awakening isn't about appearing enlightened. It's about dismantling every illusion that keeps you separate from life. The more you chase divine experiences for validation, the more you feed the very ego you were meant to transcend. This is why spiritual wisdom always humbles you. It strips away your spiritual pride and brings you face to face with your humanity. The false light says, "You are perfect just as you are." Real light says, "There is more to unlearn." The false light promises pleasure, recognition, and superiority. True awakening leads you into silence, simplicity, and presence. It does not flatter your mind. It dissolves it. When your spirituality becomes about feeling special instead of becoming free, you are living in the counterfeit heaven, a beautiful illusion that feels good but traps you in endless self-reflection without real growth. The only way out of this final trap is through awareness. Notice where your spirituality becomes performance: when you post every revelation, when you compare your awakening to others, or when you secretly crave acknowledgement for being different. Remember that enlightenment is not a badge. It is a quiet return to authenticity. The path of awakening is not about chasing more light, but learning to hold the darkness without running from it. As Socrates said, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." When you can rest in that emptiness without fear, you are no longer deceived by false light. You stop seeking to become spiritual and start allowing yourself to be aware, grounded, compassionate, and real. In this quiet state, the illusion of the demiurge fades. You no longer need to be seen as awakened. You simply are awake. The addiction to mystical highs loses its grip, replaced by a calm acceptance of life's simplicity. Real spiritual wisdom does not shout, it breathes. It teaches you to listen more than you speak, to forgive more than you explain, and to live truthfully rather than appear enlightened. And when you embody that truth, the false heaven collapses, the final trap breaks, and your spiritual awakening finally becomes real. If you feel called to see beyond illusion and awaken to true light, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Together, let's seek the wisdom that leads us beyond the counterfeit heaven. 7. Liberation through stillness and remembrance. True spirituality is not a quest for something distant, but a deep remembrance of what has always been present within you. Awakening is not found through seeking. It unfolds through remembering. Beneath every thought and emotion lies a silent awareness, untouched by time or struggle. As Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." You do not dissolve illusion by fighting it, but by quietly withdrawing your attention from it. The illusion thrives on your energy, on your desire to fix, prove, or control. When you stop feeding it with attention, it fades naturally, like mist under the morning sun. Stillness becomes your liberation, because it reconnects you to the essence that never moved, never wavered, never ceased to be whole. In the silence of true awareness, you begin to see that everything you sought outside was a reflection of what already existed within. Spiritual awakening is not a process of accumulation. It is a process of remembering. You strip away the layers of noise, fear, and identity until what remains is pure consciousness. Jung understood that the final trap on the path of spirituality is the illusion of mastery, the belief that awakening means conquering yourself. But the real awakening is the surrender of control, the recognition that you are already what you seek. The ego wants to struggle against darkness, but the soul knows that light and shadow are one dance. Liberation does not come from denial, but from acceptance so deep that even illusion is embraced and therefore transformed. Stillness is not emptiness. It is fullness without form, presence without effort. When you rest in this space, you remember your origin. You realize that peace is not something to earn. It is something to allow. Awareness itself becomes your teacher, your sanctuary, your guide. Spirituality is not an escape from the world. It is a remembering of the divine in every moment of it. The more you rest in awareness, the less power illusion holds over you. The shadows lose meaning when you stop shining your fear upon them. You begin to see the perfection in what once seemed broken, the beauty in what once seemed ordinary. This is the quiet revolution of consciousness. You awaken not by doing more, but by being more. Stillness becomes your greatest act of remembrance. When you stop searching and start seeing, when you stop reaching and start resting, illusion dissolves on its own. You begin to remember that the light you've been chasing was never lost. It was simply hidden behind the noise of your own seeking. True spiritual awakening happens not through striving, but through surrender, not through effort, but through awareness. In stillness, you return to the truth that everything you thought you had to find, you already are. 8. The real light and the end of seeking. The final realization in spirituality is not about reaching enlightenment, but seeing that it was never something to attain in the first place. The truth is that awakening isn't a destination, but the awareness that has always been present, the silent witness behind your thoughts, emotions, and perceptions. It is what sees, but cannot be seen. This awareness is timeless, unchanging, and free from the illusions that the mind creates. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." In this understanding, awakening is not about escaping reality or achieving perfection, but recognizing that the light you seek is already shining within you. You are not a seeker chasing truth. You are truth itself, observing the endless play of light and shadow through consciousness. The greatest trap on the path of spiritual development is the illusion of progress, the belief that you must chase enlightenment, that you must meditate longer, read more, or ascend higher to become divine. This trap feeds the ego. which survives through the act of seeking, always convincing you that you are one step away from awakening. Yet the more you chase, the further you drift from stillness. The ego disguises itself as a spiritual self, proud of its knowledge and its discipline, believing it has reached higher levels of consciousness. But real awareness is not found through effort. It arises in the moment you stop trying to become something other than what you are. The light of truth doesn't demand you to strive. It asks you to surrender. When the seeker disappears, the seeing remains. The illusion of enlightenment often seduces many sincere souls. They feel they must reach a final state, a supreme level of consciousness where suffering no longer exists. But that idea itself is born of duality. The mind creates a future where awakening awaits, but true light exists only here, now. It is the simple, wordless recognition of what has always been. When even the desire to be awakened dissolves, what remains is pure consciousness still, vast, unmovable. It watches the rise and fall of thoughts without judgment, the dance of emotion without attachment, the coming and going of life without fear. The mind will never understand it, for the mind itself is the veil that covers it. In the end, the real light is not something you find, but something you remember. It was never hidden, only overlooked by the constant noise of striving. When you stop seeking, you begin to see. When you stop identifying with the seeker, you awaken to the truth that you were never lost. Awakening is not a peak. It is a presence. It is not an achievement. It is awareness itself, vast and silent, watching through your eyes and breathing through your life. When the illusion of enlightenment fades, only truth remains unchanging, eternal, and free. Now, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let your spirit return to stillness. Feel the difference between chasing the light and being the light. As you release the endless seeking, your true illumination begins to rise from within. Repeat after me. I am no longer searching. I have found the light within me. If this message resonates, like, subscribe, and share your reflection in the comments below, so together we can walk this path of spiritual wisdom. True spiritual awakening isn't about escaping reality, but seeing through its illusions with clarity and courage. As Carl Jung warned, the greatest trap lies in believing you've reached enlightenment while your ego still quietly rules. Real growth happens when you face your shadows, integrate your pain, and live consciously in truth. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone on their awakening journey, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming explorations into the depth of the soul. I wasn't supposed to teach you this young secret, but it's time. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. There are truths about the human mind so powerful that most people aren't ready to face them, but you are. In today's video, I wasn't supposed to teach you this Jung secret, but it's time. We'll uncover one of Jung's most transformative insights, a principle that can reshape how you see yourself, others, and the invisible patterns guiding your life. This isn't theory. It's spiritual wisdom for real transformation and awakening. As you listen, reflect on how these truths show up in your daily life. Have you ever noticed the same lessons repeating themselves in different forms? Comment below your thoughts. Your reflection might awaken someone else's journey. 1. The hidden manual of human nature. Most people move through life unaware of the intricate web of forces shaping human behavior. They respond to emotions, chase validation, and repeat patterns without understanding the silent rules that govern them. Centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli dared to reveal these hidden laws, truths about power, emotion, and control so raw that society branded them as evil. Yet, his teachings were never about corruption. They were about clarity. He unveiled the mirror of humanity, showing that behind every act of kindness, betrayal, or ambition lies an instinctive struggle for survival. And while religion and culture have taught us to see purity as separate from strategy, Machiavelli's wisdom reminds us that awareness itself is sacred. It's not darkness that blinds us, but ignorance. Only through self-knowledge, a form of spirituality and spiritual awakening, can we rise above the unconscious machinery of human behavior. To see the truth of how people operate is not to lose faith in them. It is to finally understand them. Machiavelli understood that emotions govern far more decisions than logic ever could. We are not rational creatures pretending to be emotional. We are emotional beings, occasionally touched by reason. Recognizing this is not cynicism. It is liberation. It allows you to stop personalizing others' choices, to see manipulation for what it truly is, fear in disguise. When you realize that people often act from wounds, insecurity, and survival instincts, you no longer take betrayal or rejection as reflections of your worth. You learn to respond with balance, not bitterness. This is the essence of spiritual wisdom: to see clearly, without judgment, and to remain anchored in self-awareness, no matter what storms arise around you. Carl Jung expanded this understanding by revealing that the external world is a mirror of our inner state. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. When you observe human nature through this lens, you begin to see the divine intelligence behind every interaction. Each conflict, each disappointment becomes a lesson in disguise, an invitation to confront your own shadow. The one who triggers you is not your enemy, but your teacher. The one who betrays you awakens discernment. The one who doubts you strengthens your faith. Spiritual awakening is not about avoiding the chaos of humanity. It's about mastering your inner response to it. You become less reactive, more conscious, more aligned with your higher self. When you combine Machiavelli's realism with Jung's depth psychology, a powerful synthesis emerges. Self-awareness becomes the highest form of power. Once you understand the motives behind others' actions, you also understand your own. You see how fear seeks control, how desire hides vulnerability, and how silence can become strength. This awareness shifts you from being controlled by your emotions to mastering them. It turns chaos into clarity, reaction into intention, and pain into purpose. True spirituality isn't about transcending the human experience. It's about transforming it through understanding. You become both the observer and the participant in life's grand theater, acting not from ignorance, but from insight. And when that moment of awakening arrives, nothing can shake you. You realize that manipulation loses its grip when you see through it. Power games dissolve when you no longer need validation. The hidden manual of human nature stops being a secret. It becomes the language you fluently speak. You begin to live with quiet strength, guided not by illusion, but by awareness. Compassion flows naturally because you no longer expect perfection from the imperfect. You see humanity as a tapestry woven from both shadow and light, and in that recognition, you find peace. This is the true essence of spiritual awakening, to awaken not above the world, but within it, walking with wisdom, seeing truth, and staying grounded in the light of understanding. Comment below, "I choose to awaken," if you're ready to uncover the hidden manual of human nature and step into a deeper level of spiritual wisdom. 2. People are emotional, not rational. People are emotional, not rational. And this truth lies at the heart of human behavior. Most of what we call decision-making is simply emotional reaction wrapped in logic after the fact. As Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge more by the eye than by the hand." People believe what looks right, what feels good, what gives them comfort or status. The mind follows the body's chemistry, the racing heartbeat, the sense of warmth, the subtle intuition, and then invents reasons to justify it. You see this every day. Someone buys a luxury brand not because it's better, but because it makes them feel powerful. Someone stays in a relationship not because it's right, but because being alone terrifies them. Another person changes their opinion simply because a confident voice said the same words they once ignored. This is not a weakness, it's design. Carl Jung saw that the unconscious drives most of our actions long before the conscious mind interferes. Your emotions are ancient signals, the language of your soul, and they shape how you interpret every face, tone, and situation around you. Spirituality and spiritual development begin when you stop pretending that logic rules your life and start noticing the waves beneath it. Before every decision, there's a feeling: curiosity, fear, desire, or pride. Once you learn to read these feelings instead of denying them, you become a master of your own energy instead of a slave to it. Modern society knows this secret well. Advertisements use color and rhythm to bypass your mind and speak directly to your subconscious. Politicians time their speeches to catch you in emotional fatigue. Social media thrives on dopamine, rewarding outrage and validation over truth. Every image, sound, and message is crafted to trigger emotion first and reason later. Yet once you see the pattern, you become immune to it. You begin to feel before reacting, breathe before judging, and sense the motive beneath the mask. Ask yourself, why do certain people's silence disturb you, while others' opinions mean nothing? Why does a compliment feel like oxygen, and a criticism sting like a wound? These are not random. They are mirrors reflecting the places where your emotional body still seeks healing. True spiritual development is learning to sit with that discomfort without running from it. It's realizing that calm awareness holds more power than frantic reaction. When you start living from this awareness, you no longer chase approval or validation. You move with intention, choosing responses that align with your higher self rather than your temporary emotion. You influence not through manipulation, but through presence, through the quiet confidence that others can feel but cannot explain. Spirituality, then, becomes the art of energy mastery, feeling deeply but choosing wisely, caring fully but staying centered, seeing appearances but not being blinded by them. In a world driven by emotion, the one who understands emotion rules their own destiny. 3. Loyalty must be earned, not assumed. Loyalty must be earned, not assumed, because blind loyalty is not a virtue, but a weakness disguised as devotion. When you give your loyalty without discernment, you are not being kind. You are surrendering your power. True loyalty, as Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom teaches, is never about sentiment or obligation. It is about energetic reciprocity. You cannot remain loyal to someone who continually drains your spirit or fails to honor your presence. Loyalty should be an exchange of mutual respect, trust, and strength, a reflection of two souls walking in alignment, not one person carrying the weight of another's indifference. Powerful and awakened minds understand that loyalty is strategic, not emotional. It serves truth, not illusion. The moment loyalty becomes one-sided, it transforms from a noble act into a chain that binds your growth. Jung believed that misplaced loyalty often comes from an unconscious desire to be loved or validated. Many people remain loyal to pain because they mistake endurance for virtue. They tolerate betrayal and disrespect under the illusion of being the good one. But spiritual awakening teaches that loyalty to others means nothing if it requires disloyalty to yourself. As Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This means if you keep being loyal to those who dishonor you, it's not fate, it's your unhealed shadow repeating itself. When loyalty is not returned, the wise withdraw it without guilt. This is not cruelty, it is clarity. You are not abandoning anyone. You are honoring the truth. Real loyalty grows from mutual strength, not need. It cannot survive where one takes and the other constantly gives. The awakened soul understands that staying loyal to people who disrespect your energy is like pouring light into a black hole. It disappears, leaving you empty. That is why Carl Jung emphasized individuation, the process of becoming whole within yourself. When you no longer seek validation through loyalty, you begin to attract relationships rooted in equality and respect. Loyalty then becomes something sacred, not a burden, but a choice made by two evolved souls who see each other's light and protect it. So when you sense that your loyalty is being taken for granted, listen to your intuition. Do not be afraid to walk away from what no longer values your presence. Loyalty should never cost your peace. Stay loyal to your higher self, to the truth that keeps you grounded and strong. Because the moment you choose self-loyalty over emotional attachment, you no longer depend on others to complete you. You become whole. And in that wholeness, every connection you build reflects mutual power, respect, and spiritual wisdom. Have you ever tested who truly deserves your loyalty? If you've learned this lesson the hard way, share your story in the comments so others can grow from it too. If you're just beginning to guard your loyalty wisely, comment below, "I choose my loyalty with wisdom." And let this be your declaration of strength and self-respect. 4. Reputation is about respect, not being liked. Reputation is not about being liked. It's about being respected. In a world where many people trade authenticity for acceptance, real power comes from staying grounded in your truth. Reputation is the reflection of how others perceive you, and perception often becomes reality. People don't respond to your intentions. They respond to the energy you project. That's why reputation is not something you leave to chance. It's something you shape with integrity, purpose, and awareness. Authenticity doesn't mean revealing every detail of your life. It means showing only what aligns with your purpose. You can be real without being transparent to the point of vulnerability. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. When you learn to protect your private space, you begin to understand that your energy is sacred. You are not hiding, you are honoring your spirit. Authenticity is not about exposure, but alignment. It's choosing to share from strength, not from a need for validation. Oversharing often comes from insecurity, while true authenticity is rooted in confidence and spiritual awakening. When you share something personal, it should uplift others, not deplete you. Your silence can be powerful when used with intention. It creates mystery, depth, and self-respect. People are drawn not to what they can fully see, but to what they can feel. Mystery invites curiosity, and curiosity builds respect. Consistency, too, is a pillar of reputation. When your actions, words, and energy align over time, people begin to trust you. Respect is earned through reliability. You don't have to please everyone. You simply need to be congruent. A spiritually awakened person does not shift with every opinion. They remain steady because they know who they are. That stability commands quiet respect. Strategic vulnerability is another key. It's not about hiding your scars. It's about revealing them with intention. When you share from a healed place, your story becomes a source of spiritual wisdom. You turn pain into purpose and create a reputation built on growth, not pity. As Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Awareness transforms weakness into strength, and your energy begins to speak louder than your words. Respect will always outweigh approval. Approval can be bought with compliance, but respect must be earned through boundaries, courage, and inner strength. When you stop seeking to be liked, you start radiating quiet authority. People may not always agree with you, but they will recognize your depth. This is the essence of spirituality, living in truth rather than performing for acceptance. Your reputation, when built on integrity and self-awareness, becomes your silent message to the world. It says, "I know who I am. I walk with intention. I live in alignment." You don't need to prove yourself when your energy already speaks volumes. Respect is not demanded, it's inspired. And that inspiration is the natural result of a soul that has awakened to its own worth. Do you agree that true respect matters more than being liked? If you do, stand firm in your truth and comment below. I choose respect over approval. 5. Conflict is inevitable. Prepare for it. Machiavelli once said, "There is no avoiding war. It can only be postponed to the advantage of others." His words reveal a timeless truth about human nature and the journey of spiritual development. Conflict is inevitable. Life, by its very nature, will test you. People will challenge you. Circumstances will push you. And your own mind will often become your greatest battlefield. The wise do not seek conflict, but they are never unprepared for it. They understand that avoidance is weakness disguised as peace. True spirituality is not about escaping challenges, but learning to face them with calm awareness and unwavering strength. Every conflict, whether emotional, mental, or physical, is a mirror that reflects where you are still unhealed. It reveals the parts of you that crave control, validation, or fear loss. When you understand this, conflict becomes not an obstacle, but a teacher guiding your spiritual awakening. Preparation is the silent art that makes you powerful without ever needing to prove it. You prepare not because you expect the worst, but because you respect yourself enough to stay ready. You sharpen your mind through study, your emotions through mindfulness, your body through discipline, and your spirit through stillness. When you cultivate inner strength in all these areas, skill, finances, health, and mindset, you create an invisible shield that commands respect without confrontation. You become the person who no longer reacts to chaos because your peace is no longer dependent on circumstances. That is the essence of spirituality, a calm so deep that even storms bow before it. Conflict, when met with awareness, becomes an opportunity for transformation. It is in the heat of tension that your patience is refined, in the presence of opposition that your truth is tested, and in moments of pressure that your faith either collapses or crystallizes. The goal is not to win every battle, but to master yourself so completely that conflict can no longer control your emotions. The true warrior in spiritual development doesn't fight with swords or words, but with clarity, restraint, and wisdom. They know when to act and when to stay silent. They understand that sometimes the most powerful move is stillness, because silence unnerves those who depend on reaction to maintain power. When you live prepared, you don't have to fear life's unpredictability. You walk with quiet confidence because your foundation is strong, built on knowledge, awareness, and emotional stability. The person who is grounded in their inner power doesn't need to shout, prove, or defend. Their energy speaks louder than their words. In spirituality, this is what it means to be untouchable. Not invincible in the physical sense, but untouchable in spirit. When your peace cannot be disturbed, you have mastered one of life's greatest lessons, that conflict may be inevitable, but suffering is a choice. And the one who is truly prepared no longer fears the battle, for they have already won it within. 6. Nice is not the same as good. People confuse being nice with being good, but as Carl Jung revealed through his spiritual wisdom, niceness often hides fear, while goodness reflects true moral strength. Niceness seeks approval. It bends under pressure, trying to be everything for everyone, afraid of rejection or judgment. But goodness doesn't need to please. It stands rooted in truth, even when it's uncomfortable. A nice man wants to be liked, but a good man chooses to do what's right, even if it costs him admiration. Niceness tries to smooth over tension. Goodness confronts it with honesty. Niceness says yes to avoid conflict. Goodness says no to protect integrity. Niceness lives on the surface, built from fear of disapproval, while goodness rises from the depth of the soul. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And to become that person, you must stop performing for acceptance and start embodying authenticity." True spiritual awakening begins when you understand that kindness without boundaries isn't virtue, it's self-betrayal. When your kindness lacks strength, it turns into silent resentment, the invisible poison that drains your energy and dignity. Weak niceness is a mask that repels because it feels insincere. Strong goodness attracts because it radiates truth. People sense when you are acting out of fear versus when you are acting out of integrity. The man who is merely nice hopes to be noticed, while the man who is truly good commands respect without demanding it. Niceness needs external validation. Goodness creates its own light from within. Carl Jung called this process the integration of the shadow, the moment you stop denying the assertive, powerful side of yourself that society has taught you to suppress. To be whole, you must balance softness with strength, compassion with clarity, forgiveness with discernment. You cannot truly love others if you constantly betray yourself. You cannot be good without learning to say no, to draw lines, to protect what's sacred inside you. The world doesn't need people who smile to be accepted. It needs souls who stand firm in truth and love, who embody peace not by avoiding conflict, but by mastering it. As Jung said, no tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. Real goodness isn't fragile. It is forged through the tension of opposites, where your light and darkness learn to coexist in harmony. Being nice might make you liked for a moment, but being good makes you trusted for a lifetime. When you combine empathy with authority and love with wisdom, you stop being a people pleaser and start becoming a soul leader. Goodness is not about being agreeable. It's about being whole, honest, and grounded. Weak niceness repels because it's empty. Strong goodness attracts because it's real. True power lies not in constant compliance, but in conscious choice, where your actions align with both heart and truth. That is the essence of spiritual wisdom. Learning that your soul's light shines brightest when guided by strength, integrity, and love. Leave your likes and subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming lessons in spiritual wisdom and awakening. Type in the comments, "I choose to be good, not just nice," to affirm your power to live with authenticity and strength. 7. Power through awareness. Understanding human nature, emotion, loyalty, perception, and conflict doesn't make you manipulative. It makes you powerful beyond measure. It means you've begun to see the invisible threads that guide every interaction, the subtle energies behind every word and gesture. As Carl Jung taught, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Most people are moved by invisible forces of fear, desire, guilt, approval, without realizing they are being controlled by them. But when you awaken, when your spirituality sharpens into awareness, you no longer move unconsciously through life's hidden game. You see the play beneath the performance, and awareness becomes your armor. Every person is engaged in a silent negotiation of perception. They project, defend, pretend, and perform, believing they are in control, while their shadows pull the strings. To understand this is not to manipulate, but to liberate yourself from illusion. You stop reacting to the masks others wear, because you recognize they're just expressions of unmet needs and hidden fears. Spiritual awakening begins when you stop playing unconsciously and start seeing consciously. You no longer seek validation in noise. Instead, you listen for truth in silence. You realize that emotion is not your enemy. It's energy asking to be understood. Loyalty is not servitude. It's alignment of values. Conflict is not chaos. It's revelation. Through awareness, you transform every situation into a mirror reflecting your own consciousness. Ignorance breeds reaction, but awareness breeds mastery. When you awaken, every disappointment becomes a doorway to understanding. Every betrayal becomes a mirror of your boundaries. Every emotion becomes a teacher. Jung believed that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. This is the essence of spirituality, not to escape emotion, but to transmute it. You begin to see how your judgments were projections, how your pain was a signal of growth, and how your struggles were sculpting your strength. Awareness is not detachment. It is sacred clarity. It's when your vision pierces through confusion, when your energy no longer leaks into overreaction, and when your heart can observe pain without losing compassion. As awareness deepens, you become both participant and observer in your own story. You start to sense the hidden choreography of life, the way every challenge refines your perception, every emotion expands your wisdom, every loss strengthens your spirit. In spirituality, awareness is not about knowing more, but seeing more clearly. The ignorant chase control, but the awakened cultivate presence. Power through awareness means you no longer fight reality. You flow with it, interpret it, and transcend it. You realize that human behavior is not random. It's symbolic, psychological, energetic. The more you understand it, the less it can hurt you. Awareness doesn't make you manipulative. It makes you unbreakable. Because when you see through illusion, nothing external can hold power over your inner peace. To affirm your dedication to living with conscious awareness, declare it now. Comment below. I choose awareness over illusion to honor your spiritual growth and inspire others to awaken their own inner power. 8. Final message: never be ignored. The greatest lesson you can take from Jungian and Machiavellian insight is this: it is far better to be feared than loved, but above all else, never be ignored. This principle is not about control over others, but mastery over perception, energy, and inner awareness. In the path of spirituality and spiritual development, you begin to understand that being ignored means your essence is not being felt. Your energy is scattered, your presence diluted. But when you are aligned with your truth, even your silence speaks. Power is not found in dominance or approval. It is found in the quiet confidence that radiates from authenticity. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And this is where the secret lies. People cannot ignore what is real. When you embody your true self with awareness and integrity, you no longer seek validation, because your presence itself becomes undeniable. Those who chase love often lose themselves, but those who cultivate inner power draw respect and loyalty effortlessly. Protecting your energy is not isolation. It is wisdom. It means choosing where to give your attention and refusing to let emotional noise dictate your state of being. You observe without reacting, respond without ego, and move strategically through life with spiritual awareness. Machiavelli's wisdom becomes complete only when fused with Jung's, when outer strategy meets inner mastery. To never be ignored is to live with purpose so clear that even in your absence, your energy lingers. It means controlling your narrative, not by force, but through alignment between mind, heart, and soul. The moment you accept yourself entirely, as Jung advised, you dissolve the illusion of needing to be seen, and paradoxically, the world begins to notice. You cannot be ignored when your actions, words, and silence all carry intention. This is not arrogance, but awareness, not manipulation, but presence. When you merge psychological strength with spiritual wisdom, you become untouchable in the purest sense. You stop chasing visibility because your light becomes impossible to dim. The ultimate message is simple: never beg for recognition. Move with calm authority, speak with integrity, and let your vibration announce you before your words do. Control perception, protect your peace, and walk in your truth so powerfully that the universe itself takes notice. That is the essence of true spiritual development, the art of being seen without seeking, of being heard without speaking, and of never being ignored because your energy has become your legacy. True power begins the moment you understand how the human mind truly works, not as society pretends it does, but as Carl Jung and the great thinkers of history revealed it to be. What you've learned today isn't just knowledge. It's a key to transformation. Use it to master your emotions, your perception, and your destiny. If this message awakens something within you, remember to like this video, share it with those who seek deeper truth, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming explorations into the hidden depths of the human soul.